I love a good fun fold, don't you? Well, today we're going to create these gorgeous standing Z fold cards. We've got a place here to write our message. They are just gorgeous, right? We have one for the holidays as well. Friends, you won't believe how easy these are to create, and I can't wait to teach you how. Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's Tuesday tip video. My name's Connie Stewart with simplysimplestamping.com. And let me tell you, these cards are going to knock your socks off. I love to simplify things. Guess that's why it's in the name. And today's cards are no exception. I'm going to teach you some quick ways to make creating this card super easy. Let's start with the supplies that we need to create the card. Everything you need for today's card is all nice and neat in a wonderful little free download. Friends, you'll find this at simplysimplestamping.com. This is the December 2nd, 2025 post. Here you're going to have the supply list, the measurements, the photos. If you need to come back and watch the video, you can scan the QR code or click right there. And over here on the next page, you're going to see an image of all the supplies that I used. Friends, if you would like to order any of the things that I am using on my cards today, if you will follow that link, it'll take you right to my store. You can order any of the things you want right there. Thank you guys so much. Your orders mean the world to me. With that, let's jump into our card. So we're going to be starting with a piece of pretty peacock cardstock. Now it started out as an 8.5 by 11, but I did cut this down to 10.5 by 7.25. Let's do a little scoring. And I'm going to use my paper trimmer because we're also going to be doing some trimming here in a minute. So we are going to score this. I've got the 7.25 inches up at the top. We will score at 1.5 inches and 3 inches. All right, now we're going to rotate our cardstock around. So we've got the 10.5 inches up at the top. And now we're going to cut at 1.25 inch. And we're going to cut 4 of these at 1.25 inch. I love that we could do that one set of scoring and then we can cut these down. It just makes creating this card so simple. Now, when we cut our 4 pieces, 1.25 by 7.25, that's going to leave us a 5.5 by 7.25. So that's going to be the card base. I'm going to set these aside so we can go ahead and do our stamping. And again, it's all about simplicity. I'm going to have a little scratch paper here underneath me. I'm going to be using textured notes today. I love the detail in these 2 leafy images. Also, we've got some great sentiments in here we'll be using as well. So this is a Lost Lagoon 2 3/4 by 5.25. I've got 2 ink pads, Lost Lagoon and Pretty Peacock. In the Lost Lagoon, I am going to stamp a few of these leafy images here. And now we can come in with the Pretty Peacock, and we're going to bring in the smaller one. This we're going to kind of use to fill in. All right. Beautiful. I'm going to set that aside. I now have a piece of basic white. This is 4 inches by 4.5 inches. Now I want the 4 inches up at the top. I say that, but at the same time, this is a very random stamp, but we are going to be cutting this direction. So if your stamp that you're using has a pattern, go ahead and make sure the 4 inches is there at the top. So we're just going to do pretty much the same thing we did before. Again, I just like to try to keep it as random as I can. Now let's come in with the Pretty Peacock. And just like before, we are just going to kind of fill in some of these spaces. I like it pretty full just because I just don't like a lot of the white showing. A little bit right there, I think I'm good. This is a little 2 inch by 1.5 inches. This is the greeting for the front. So this is going to be a thank you card. I will just stamp thank you right there. I'm going to set that off to the side. The last piece, and that is a piece of basic white. This is where you're going to write your message on the back. And this is a 3 3/4 by 5 inch. I'm going to do the large image there in the Lost Lagoon. And let's just stamp that one in the Pretty Peacock. And a really great sentiment. I love this. You are seriously the best. Let's see, I'll do that in Pretty Peacock. And we will stamp that right there. I love getting all of the stamping done at one time. And now we're ready to do some cutting. So let's bring in the two pieces here that we stamped. We're going to bring in the paper trimmer, trim this up. Let's go ahead and cut our Lost Lagoon first. That was the 2 3/4 by 5 1/4. To cut that in half, we're going to cut it down to 1 3/8. Remember, that is in between 1 1/4 and 1 1/2. And we're going to cut that in half, set those off to the side. Now to cut up our 4 1/2 by 4. So I'm going to put the 4 1/2 inches up at the top, and I'm going to be cutting these down to 1 1/8 inch. So that's just in between 1 inch and 1 1/4. So let's cut 4 of these. They will all be equal sizes. So when we get to our last one, yep, we will be right where we need to be. We have just a little bit more cutting to do on these. We're going to cut them down to 2 5/8. That's going to leave me a 1 3/8. And when you cut these, go ahead and kind of keep them in order, because we're going to add these to our Z folds. And it is really nice when we can kind of keep them in order. So remember those 4 strips we cut off earlier off of our Pretty Peacock? Well, you can see I gave them all a little Z fold, and I've burnished those with my bone folder. And now we are ready to adhere. So I'm going to adhere a piece here, and a 1 3/8 will go right here. I'm going to do that to all 4. Yes, there's going to be an open space on each end. I'm bringing in my Pretty Peacock card base, and you remember the 2 score lines we had there? I burnished those with my bone folder as well. Now we're going to want those to be on the left side, and we're ready to start adhering our little strips. So the only part that you're going to put adhesive on is right here and right here. So I want to try to keep it as simple as possible. So I'm going to take this panel right here. I'll put adhesive, and then I'm going to put adhesive here on this end. And I am going to start down at the bottom. I'm going to lay the card flat, and I will simply line that up at the side and at the bottom. So it's going to look something like that. But knowing you can keep that nice and flat really helps. Now I'm going to take another one. We're going to put it up at the top. I'm going to do the exact same thing. Put adhesive here on the card base. And all of these are going to go on in the same manner. So we've got those 2, and we're ready to add our next 2. Now this is where I'm going to tell you to just kind of maybe place it in here to get an idea of your spacing, so you know about how much spacing you're going to need. And then we're ready to add those. When I do these, I typically don't press them down really hard. So if I need to move them, I have the ability to do that. And we just want to make sure we're getting them on as straight as we can. But like I said, don't press those down, because if you need to move them, better to have those a little loosey-goosey until we are ready. All right, so can you see I have a pretty big gap right there? Yep, and that's going to happen, but it's not a big deal. I can scoot this down. And then when I kind of hold it up and kind of see, yeah, I'm happy with that. Let's give everything a good press. Now, I didn't like this and I wanted to hide it. That's where we're going to put those Lost Lagoon stamped cardstock pieces. And you can see those are going to cover all that up so nicely. Just center that up. There we go. That's the beginning of our card. All right, now to decorate the front. So I have a piece of Pretty Peacock. It can be a scrap. I think mine is about a 2 by 5.5. And I decided to use the Thankful Garden dies. I really liked a leafy image. And honestly, I just kind of looked through my dies and said, what has a good leafy image? Friends, I'm going to die cut 2 of these. So as you can see, really any scrap will do. All right. I just about that size was enough to get me 2 of these. I have a piece of Lost Lagoon. This is a 2 1/4 by 1 3/4. Now I put some adhesive here on the third panel. This can go, really, this can go anywhere. There's no right or wrong. I think I'll go about right there. We're going to add our die cut leaves, and don't worry, we'll be covering that up, but I want to make sure I'm not going to go off the side of the card. All right. So about something like that. Again, I can just, and this is kind of going to be a little bit of a temporary hold because I'm going to bring in my stamped greeting and I'm going to add that with Stampin' Dimensionals. So I'll have some Stampin' Dimensionals going over this that'll really hold it down. So there are my Stampin' Dimensionals. Like I said, that is most definitely going to hold my leaves in. We can go ahead and add our message to the back, but I wanted to give that another layer. So I have got a piece of Lost Lagoon, 4 by 5 1/4. Let's layer our greeting. I like how this is an over the top card, but it's not overly complicated. So we will add that. I love the layer of the Lost Lagoon. It just ties everything in. Okay, let's add some embellishments. I'm going to bring in that scratch paper again. I have got some balmy blue sheer ribbon. I love this ribbon, but I wanted it to be Pretty Peacock. I wanted it to match my card. I have the Pretty Peacock Light Stampin' Blend. And friends, I cannot tell you how easy it is to color this ribbon. And it is a nice light blue. So I want you to notice how I'm using the side of my blend. You don't want to use the tip. You don't want to mush down the tip of your beautiful Stampin' Blend. So just along the edge, you're going to want to let that dry for just a couple minutes, but I'm going to slide it right under panel number 2. And I am simply going to tie it in a bow right here up at the top of my greeting. Let's add one more embellishment. I wanted a little bit more on my thank you. And I didn't have any embellishments that were Pretty Peacock. But you know what I do have? I have the iridescent foil gems. And guess what else we can do with that Stampin' Blend? I am going to color 3 of these. Again, not using the tip necessarily, kind of using the side, but it's going to let all that beautiful iridescent shine through, but we still get the color we want. You know, I use the light Stampin' Blend, but you could definitely use the dark if you wanted them to be a little bit darker. But friends, can we just talk about how gorgeous that card is? This is your wow. This is your over the top. You really want to create something amazing. But friends, with just those 2 score lines and cutting off those 4 pieces, it was like boom, boom, boom. And you have this great Z-fold standing card. It mails in a medium-sized envelope, so it is perfect. All right, I've got another card to share with you for Christmas. Don't forget about the free download that I have for you that goes along with today's video. When you're ready to recreate these cards, you're going to be so glad you have this. Everything is right here, your measurements, your supplies, and if you need to come back and watch the video again, there's a QR code or a link that you can click. You will find your free download at simplysimplestamping.com. Look for the December 2nd, 2025 blog post. Are you still working on your Christmas cards? Well, this one might be right up your alley because it all kind of comes together using designer series paper. We did a little heat embossing there on the back, a little season's greetings. I love this gold and black. This is the modern Christmas designer series paper. Let's go ahead. We're going to go very quickly over the card base. You've seen me do it once. We'll do it a second time, only a little faster. Remember, that was a 10.5 by 7 1/4. And I'm going to be using basic white thick for this one. Let's get that cutting blade out of the way. We're going to score at 1.5 inches and at 3 inches. Remember, then we're going to rotate it around and we're going to cut at 1 1/8 inch. And we're going to cut 4 of those. We'll set those pieces off to the side. I have a piece of designer series paper and I loved this fa la 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 la. That is a 4-inch by 4.5 inch. So we're going to put the 4.5 inches up at the top. We're going to cut these to 1 1/8 inch. And now we cut these down to 2 5/8. I have these all in order, and now we are ready to add them to those basic white thick. Remember your little Z folds, they're going to be over to the right side. I always start at the bottom, so I'll put adhesive there and here on this panel. Remember, your card goes flat and they will line up perfectly. All right. I am going to continue. Whoops, let's add it to the right panel here. And we're going to add the top. And then remember, this is the one that we want to lay it down gently in case we need to move it. So we'll add those right there in the center. I don't know. I always find it's easier when I hold it up. Actually, I think that looks pretty good. We'll give that a press. I have 2 more pieces of designer series paper from Modern Christmas. These measure 1 3/8 by 5 1/4. And again, these are going to be used just to hide. I just like to hide the work that I did right there. Plus, I love that burst of gold. I think it just looks gorgeous. All right, so for the back, this is where you're going to write your message. So we're going to do a little heat embossing. I have a piece of basic black cardstock. This is a 4 1/4 by 2. That was a little hard to see. I thought I put some white paper underneath it. I've got my embossing buddy. I am going to rub that all over the cardstock, especially on black, because I don't want any of my gold embossing powder to show up where I don't want it. I'm going to be using the traditional labels bundle. So this has some matching dies. I thought I would say Season's Greetings. Let's go classic. And we're going to do this in Versamark. So I am going to ink up my Season's Greetings. We will stamp that on the basic black. I know you can't see it. So let's come along with some gold embossing powder. I've got mine just here in a little bowl, makes it a little easier for me. And we will sprinkle that with the embossing powder. If you have any stray little pieces of gold embossing powder, this comes with a brush. You can brush that away. I think everything looks pretty good. My Tuesday tip, get this far out of your way before you start heat setting, because you don't want that embossing powder blowing everywhere. My other tip is to allow your heat tool to warm up for about 20-30 seconds before you start embossing. So pardon the noise, but I've let that warm up a little bit. And I'm just going to kind of keep moving my heat tool. I've got it probably about 4 inches from my greeting. Our goal here is to melt the embossing powder. And it's kind of funny. You're looking at it and you're thinking, oh my goodness, is it ever going to melt? Once it does, and can you see there? Yep, now it's going. Once it goes, it goes. So we will just make sure anything that is still that dull color of gold, it'll be nice and shiny. I think it looks great. My other tip, unplug your heat tool. I have heard of 2 different scenarios where a heat tool got knocked over and it was plugged in and it melted carpet or caught on fire. Carpet caught on fire. Don't do that. We don't want that. Unplug your heat tool. Safety is always a good idea. All right, so we are going to take the die for this, and you can see, whoops, let's flip it over. It's going to go right there. We're going to die cut that the same way we die cut those leaves earlier. We're going to add that to the back of our card. Now we can write our message. Let's do a little decorating to the front. I'm going to bring in some circle punches. I have a 2 3/8 inch circle punch. And I'm going to punch, let's get it right here. I want to get as many of these stars as I can. This is going to be just a nice little layer. And then I thought this piece was gorgeous. And you know what? I wasn't in the mood of fussy cut. I wanted to make it a little bit easier. So I'm going to bring in a 2-inch circle and I'm going to find a set of these trees and give that a punch. I'm just going to layer those together. I'm going to add that here to the third panel. And for this one, I'm going to use the gold mesh striped ribbon. And I'll just bring in my original. I did the same thing. I just tied it under the second panel. Guys, that's a quick and easy card. We didn't have to do a lot of stamping. Sometimes we are in a hurry, but that little bit of gold embossing, I think, really sets it up and steps it up a little bit. And of course, what's not to love about this very mantle-worthy Christmas card? There you go, my friends. Standing Z-fold cards, perfect for any time of year, any occasion. This card is going to be a hit. Hey, we were able to do it with one sheet of cardstock. Isn't that amazing? And these are the cards that are truly going to be treasured. I hope that you guys enjoyed today's card. If you did, would you give me a thumbs up on YouTube? I always appreciate that. If you have not subscribed, click the subscribe button, ring the bell. YouTube will let you know whenever I have a new video up. And if you want more paper crafting ideas, be sure to check out the YouTube membership. We have some amazing things going on there, including diagrams and written tutorials for every single video I share, and a really fun crafting night where we create an over-the-top card and we do it together nice and slow. Check it out. I'd love to have you be a part of that. Thank you again for being here. Have a fantastic day, everyone. I look forward to stamping with you guys next time. Bye-bye.